I didn't say no. Not because I agreed, not because I felt safe, but because at the time, there didn't seem to be a reason to say it. That's how it starts. Not with danger, with normal. Nothing bad happened that night. No attack, no headlines, no story anyone would recognize as a warning. And that's exactly why this one matters. Because most boundaries aren't crossed, they're measured. I got into the taxi at 9:47 p.m. I remember the time because I checked it twice. Not out of fear, out of habit. People always ask where that habit comes from. They expect some dramatic answer, training, trauma, a single moment that changed everything. But it wasn't like that. I used to work a job where noticing small things was part of staying employed. Nothing dangerous, just precise. You learn to watch hands before faces, tone before words. You learn that discomfort arrives early, long before it makes sense. So when I sat down in the back seat and the door closed and the car pulled away from the curb, my body noticed something my mind hadn't named yet. The driver didn't look at me. Not in the mirror, not when I gave the address. That sounds like nothing. Most people wouldn't notice it at all. But drivers usually check the mirror. Not to stare, just to confirm. Presence. He didn't. He just nodded and started driving. The car smelled clean. Too clean. Like it had been wiped down recently. I remember thinking that was considerate. That was mistake number one. The route was normal, at first. Main roads, traffic lights, the kind of drive your attention slides off of. I relaxed, just a little. That's when he spoke. "You've had a long day." Not a question, a statement. Soft, almost kind. I hesitated, then I smiled, even though he couldn't see it, even though it didn't matter. "Yeah," I said. And right there, that was the first no I didn't say. I could have stayed quiet. I didn't, because silence feels rude, and politeness is a powerful tool. He adjusted the mirror then, just slightly. I saw my eyes in it. He didn't look away. "Where are you coming from?" he asked. Casual, reasonable, the kind of question people ask all the time. This is important. Nothing he said was wrong. Nothing sounded dangerous. That's how calibration works. I gave him a vague answer. Not a lie, just less. I was already adjusting. I just didn't know why yet. The car slowed for a light. He tapped the steering wheel. Once, twice, perfectly in time with the signal. My body noticed before I did. That quiet resistance again, like leaning into wind. I looked at the map on my phone. We were still en route, but not the one I usually took. That didn't mean anything. There are always options, shortcuts, traffic. Still, I didn't say no. Not yet. Because at that point, I didn't know what I would be saying no to. The conversation stayed light. That was the point. Weather, traffic, how the city feels different at night. Nothing personal. Not yet. People think danger starts when questions become inappropriate. That's wrong. It starts when questions become comfortable. He told me he liked working nights. Less stress, he said. People are more honest when they're tired. I remember that sentence because it wasn't meant for me. It was meant to sound normal. I nodded. Another yes. Another no I didn't say. The car turned left. Not sharply, not suddenly, just left. I checked the map again. Still fine, still reasonable, still explainable. "This way's faster," he said. I hadn't asked. That mattered. I could have said something then, anything, a question, a preference, but there's a strange pressure in moments like that. If you object, you have to justify it, and justification creates conversation. Conversation creates exposure. So I stayed quiet. That was mistake number 2. He filled the silence easily, talking about work, about people who overshare, about how some passengers tell him their entire lives. He laughed softly, not mocking, observant. "You're not like that," he said. "You're very contained." It sounded like a compliment. I let it be one. That's another thing people miss. Predators don't insult you. They define you. Quiet, easy, reasonable. Definitions are cages you don't notice building around you. He reached down and adjusted the air, cooler, without asking. That's when my body reacted, a small breath I hadn't planned to take. "Is that okay?" he asked, after the fact. That's how boundaries get tested. Do first, ask second. "Yes," I said, and immediately wished I hadn't. The streetlights changed, fewer, farther apart. We weren't isolated, but we were drifting, out of density, out of noise. I shifted in my seat, crossed my arms, closed my posture. Small signals, controlled signals. He noticed. Of course he did. "You can relax," he said. "I'm just trying to make the ride comfortable." Another sentence that's never about comfort. This is where my training mattered, not in what I did, but in what I didn't explain. I didn't apologize, I didn't smile, I didn't soften it. "I'm fine," I said. Neutral, flat. He stopped talking after that, not offended, not annoyed, just quiet. Silence is information, and his silence was measuring something. The car slowed again, not for traffic, for timing. I felt it. That's when I realized this wasn't about where we were going. It was about how much I would let happen without naming it. I didn't say no, but I stopped saying yes. The city thinned out, not vanished, just stretched. Longer blocks, fewer windows, more space between sounds. He changed lanes without signaling, a small thing, barely noticeable, except my body noticed it. "You okay back there?" he asked, concerned, almost gentle. "Yes," I said, automatically. That word again. The map recalculated, a new route, still efficient, still explainable, still wrong. This is the part people misunderstand. They think control is about force. It's not. It's about momentum. Every minute that passes without objection becomes permission. I leaned forward slightly, enough to be seen in the mirror, not confrontational, present. "Can we take the main road?" I asked. My voice was calm, even, reasonable. He didn't answer right away. That pause mattered. Then he smiled. I could hear it. "You don't trust shortcuts?" he said. Light, playful. I could have laughed. I didn't. "I just prefer it," I said. No explanation. The car kept going, straight, for now. "You're very alert," he said after a moment. Not accusing, observing. That sentence landed differently, because it named something, and once something is named, it can be challenged. I felt it then, the shift, not in speed, not in direction, in ownership. This ride was no longer neutral. It was being negotiated. He reached toward the radio, turned it down. The car felt suddenly larger and quieter. "Most people don't notice," he said, "until it's too late." That was the line. Not a threat, not yet, but a marker. My heart rate didn't spike. It narrowed, like a lens focusing. "Let me out here," I said. Not loud, not sharp, clear. He slowed, not stopped, slowed. "This isn't a good spot," he said, matter of fact. "That's okay," I replied. "I'm fine with it." Another pause, longer this time. Then the car pulled over, lights blinking, ordinary, visible. I opened the door before he could say anything else. Cold air rushed in, noise, movement, witnesses. I stepped out, didn't run, didn't thank him, just closed the door. As the taxi drove away, I realized something important. I hadn't been in danger because I didn't say no. I had been in danger because I waited until the situation asked for it. I stood on the sidewalk and watched the taillights disappear. No rush, no shaking hands, no relief. That surprised me. People expect relief when danger passes, but relief only comes when something ends. This hadn't ended. It had revealed itself. I walked the rest of the way home, not replaying the conversation, not inventing worse outcomes, just noticing how my shoulders stayed tense, how my breathing hadn't fully settled, how my attention stayed wide. That's the part nobody tells you. When nothing happens, your body doesn't celebrate. It updates. I kept thinking about the first moment, not the turn, not the pause, but the very beginning. The first sentence, the first yes, the first no I didn't say. People talk about boundaries like they're walls. They're not. They're doors. And most of them don't close. They drift. That night taught me something simple. Not dramatic, not heroic, just precise. You don't lose control when you're afraid. You lose it when you're polite longer than you should be. Since then, I've paid attention to timing. Not what people ask, but when they ask it. Not how something sounds, but how early it appears. Because danger doesn't start when something feels wrong. It starts when something feels almost right. I didn't say no. Not because I couldn't, but because I waited for permission to say it. Now I know better. You don't wait for situations to justify your boundaries. You place them early, quietly, before they're needed. The story isn't about a taxi, or a driver, or even that night. It's about the space between comfort and consent, between silence and agreement, between nothing happened and it almost did. Most people live in that space, without noticing. I notice now. Before it happens.